Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Yeah? What do you guys think about the content so far? Great. I hear a couple, no, there better not be any boos. I'll come find you. This conference is still small enough, I've been telling a few people, that I think I can talk to every single person here in this room. You might not want to talk to me, but I'm going to try to talk to every one of you, and if I do, I'd love to hear how you think we can improve the content, the programming, the event in any way. Whatever we're doing, we want to make sure we're doing it better next year, so I'm all ears for open feedback, and I want to get that from y'all. So anyways, I'm glad to hear things are going good. Welcome back to the main stage. I think this is our last session of the day, right? No? It is. That's kind of sad, except we have a whole other day of awesomeness tomorrow. Next, please, I'm very, very excited about our next guest and our next talk. We have Sam Maul, who is Key Account Director at Google on the GCP team. Sam has worked in financial services and technology sector for 25 plus years. If you don't know Sam, he's also one of, and still, one of the biggest personalities in fintech. I love this guy, and I think you're gonna really enjoy his talk. And we also have Yolande Piazza, who is VP of GCP Financial Services and Technology. She's also has 30 plus years of experience in the industry. The two of them are going to be coming up, so help me give them a warm round of applause. Sam and Yo.
I like that you have more years of experience in the industry than me. That makes me feel good. Hey, just out of curiosity, so we get to know the room, how many of you are developers or engineers? Look at, oh my God, Wade.
Awesome.
That is really good. How many are on the banking side? This is my favorite conference ever. Holy crap. Good job, Wade. And then the fintech folks? All right, good. Well, this is going to be a good talk then. So this is going to be a good talk because most of it's going to be Yo and not me.
That will be a first.
Well, I know. The caffeine's going to kick in. So out of curiosity, how many have heard of Yolande before? Wow, decent number of days. All right, so here's the fun part. Yo, when did you actually start in the industry? What age were you?
I was 17 when I started in the industry. Actually, I'm probably going to go with 10 because I'm really going to show my age in a second, I think.
17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then how many years at City?
Just over 30.
Y'all caught that, right? Started there at 17. And what was your title when you left?
I was the CEO of City Fintech.
Yes. So politely, she's my boss, but if you politely think she puts up with any nonsense and she's not a badass, at 17 at City, and to lead there as the CEO of City Fintech, there you go. My career path sucks. It's nothing at all like that. But when I was in consulting, I had the privilege to work with her at City. The move to go from one of the biggest banks in the world to Google and in cloud, can I ask why? It's a heck of a shift.
You can, and you know, I will tell you that when you sit inside an organization, and at City Fintech, we were chartered to do two things. One was prove that you can run at the speed of a startup inside a 200-year-old company. I actually thought that would be the biggest challenge. It wasn't. The second piece of it was prove that you can start to deliver additional value, different revenue streams, when you devoid yourself from the traditional P&L and put the customer first. And for me and the team, got the bug. All in, this was just a different way to look at financial services. Now, I will tell you that you know, we used to joke about how long it would take to get an idea to market. It would take us weeks to build it, but probably 8 to 10 months to get the buy-in and the conviction from all of the different P&L owners. And the standing joke was, well, let's see if the blue ribbon works today. Let's just roll this out and you know, change the pages around on the deck and put a blue ribbon on it, and see if they bite the blue ribbon or whether they like the pink ribbon. And for me, that bug to know and be able to prove that you can change this industry by thinking differently and generate revenue was just so inspiring. So honestly, I had decided it was time to leave. I was going to go build the ecosystem. Sam and I had worked on a project together with celebrity backer. We had a team ready to go build this out at the same time that Google called. And initially it was no. No, I would never consider doing this. But the opportunity to take a step back and think about, well, it was never about me changing the industry. It was always about the industry just needs to change. We need to serve our customers differently. So what a great opportunity to sit here and have a front row seat to what the Fortune 100s all the way down to the fintechs are actually thinking about, and help them on that journey and figure out, how do we invest, how do we build products and services at Google that will help elevate that journey. And that for me was the move, and that front row seat is incredibly powerful.
And if you don't mind, so you're a VP at Google. Google hasn't learned banking roles, is that a nice way to put it? Titles,
yeah.
Right? So for all of us that are in banking, a VP, good for you. At Google, you're going to go from a VP and you're going to be a CEO somewhere. That's just how that, that. Look at her, she's being real calm, so when she leaves Google way down the road, she'll be running a company somewhere. What's your responsibilities at Google Cloud?
So Google Cloud, it's really to work and partner with our customers. We're typically focused on the Fortune 100, to start with, but to really help elevate their journey, to be able to move them from that traditional legacy thinking and mindset. I think the question every bank is asking themselves, a large company now, is, should I be in the data center business? Should I be in the security business? When you start to think about commodity skill sets, there is no reason that there's no benefit from being, an IP provider in those spaces when you have major competitors, major tech giants out there that are so vested, in this. So I would tell you, while the initial intent is to help make that transition, and I look at everything through three pillars: cost, risk, and growth. Our job is to help enable our customers to achieve success in those. So when you talk about growth, it's how do we help drive new acquisitions? How do we think about attrition? How do you think about retention? And how do our products and services, when you think about data, when you think about analytics, when you think about machine learning, truly start to help unlock those areas of potential? I think in this market, everybody's gone to the typical playbook of cost: take out people, cut projects that don't have in-year returns, think about deferring your costs. There's a whole laundry list. I've run the playbook many, many times in my career. But I think there's a different way of doing it now, like having a conversation about how does technology really enable that cost shift. So I think that's a responsibility and an obligation for us to help demonstrate at scale. How do you leapfrog and stop doing I'll take small bites of the pie? And then risk. I'm still baffled to this day, sitting on both sides of this, why financial services still think people, process, technology. The power, when you turn that around and think about technology, process, people, there's no reason today that the control environment is still manual. It should be completely automated. There is the fact that we still do quarterly true-ups where you pull sample data and somebody manually goes through and sees if there was an error is mind-boggling. And I think our obligation is to help show people how to get there, what it unlocks and what it enables, to partner with our customers and the regulators to get them comfortable with these shifts, and lay the foundation to change the industry, which is why I came to Google. You have to have the core foundation before you start talking about true innovation. And what's great is now that we are well on the way to really starting to have those innovation conversations about how we enable and can partner to change industries.
Yeah, I love that you focused on changing the industry. That's why we love Moov. I've known Wade way too long, for years. Love the team at Moov. know a lot of the companies that are here, and that concept of, you started that today, right? With the Moov, I won't do the lyrics, but the song, I didn't realize that was behind the company name. Good for you. Luda, yeah, for those of you. I'm from Detroit. I look old, but I do love my music, so I appreciate that. We've both been, they said 25 years for me. Combined, we're at about 65 years of experience in this space, which is, we look great for our age. I am an AARP member. Are you?
I am not.
Okay,
no.
that was good.
Not yet.
She could, no. I need my job. We've done performance reviews, so I'm all right. But we've been around pre-internet, both of us in our careers, right? We can remember your first email, remember the first flip phone, you know, we've been down that path. So I think it's one thing that would be interesting, especially for this group. Let's go back. I think a couple of people have talked about this. When we talk about fintech, obviously it's been around way before we labeled it fintech, but you really look at the financial crash in 2008 and 2009 is really when a lot of this kicked off. So if you were to look back from your experience over, say, that 12-year period, how do you look at fintech and the banking relationship, from your opinion? How well do you think we've done, to be honest? I came out of fintech, by the way, everybody, before joining Google.
Yeah, I'm going to be really honest, and I don't want to end the session on a downer. But
no, we're going to end on a really good note.
Okay, good. I don't think we've made the progress that everybody thought that we would. You know, when it first came out, and fintech, I'm still amazed. Fintech is still cool. Hashtag fintech, and Wade, you referred to it earlier, is still cool, and that surprises me. Because while we've seen, you know, phenomenal companies that have entered to the market, I find, you know, I'm still waiting for the unicorn or unicorns that are going to truly change the industry. You know, there's all this fear somewhere in the middle of the last 12 years of fintechs are going to take over. Well, they didn't. What they've done is, what changed is banks and the larger institutions finally recognized IP isn't the only way to go, that they don't have to build everything, and the shift to partner. And so you see a lot of fintechs partnering or embedding, and in some cases being bought. But I have to ask the founders of the fintech, is that your aspirational goal? I see we've made massive advancements in technology. We have streamlined processes, we've taken noise out of the system, we have changed the customer experience and how they interact. But let's be honest, on average, a customer has 14 financial services apps on their phone, of which they spend less than 3% of their screen time using it. And the majority of those apps don't get used after the first few months. So have we changed the industry? I don't think so. I think there is still huge opportunity to shift the thinking and truly disrupt. So maybe that's just like, I'm big into the disruption camp, not just incremental change.
Well, so a little trivia question for y'all that are in here. So in 2009, the world was a horrible place in this industry. The Wall Street Journal pulled together a group of bigwigs, I think it was in London, sat them down. They actually had Paul Volcker, who was the head of the Fed, right? Remember, right? And they asked the panel a question. This is when everything's burning down. And they said, what's the greatest banking technology innovation over the past 30 years? Does anyone know what Volcker said? Who said that? Yell it. ATM. The ATM. 2009. He said the ATM. I still think that's funny. But I also get it because he also said, look, it changed people's lives. You could bank whenever you wanted, do the deposits, go there and everything else. He didn't say anything about smartphones or mobile banking, and smartphones were out by then. He didn't say anything about the internet. And so I look over the past 12 years, and I would say, from my view, mobile devices have changed, but they've also changed human behavior. I mean, come on, y'all. I've got 4 kids. I haven't seen their faces in 10 years. It's not a bad thing, right? I love them. Nobody tweet that, Alex Pines, wherever you're at, all right? But our behavior's changed. We all know that, right? The mobile devices have definitely changed, I think, probably every industry, entertainment, right? I mean, everything's changed. It's not just banking and financial services that has been impacted.
But I will think what I would say on it is, if you look at the traditional organizations, the desire wasn't, or the starting point wasn't to change the relationship with the customer. It was a cost play. I need to move servicing off. I need to think about a different distribution channel to lower my ever-rising servicing cost. And if you look at the enhancements and what the majority of those accounts have delivered, it's a servicing app for the majority. I think there have been advancements, and what I love about the fintechs, they taught the traditional organizations that the consumer wanted a different interaction. They wanted simpler. They didn't want legalese. They didn't want a ton of data. And for those of you who followed Fin, and I know there's people here from JPMC, and you may love it or you hate it, the one thing that Fin did exceptionally well, it was the first major bank that talked to the customer in a language in which they could understand. And I thought that was huge. Like, Fin actually put a statement, we apologize on that. I've never seen that, you know, from a core traditional bank ever. But the rise of the fintech, recognizing how they engage and how they interact had to change, I think is actually one of the most powerful things, not the services that are out there.
Yeah.
And again, it's so narrow, you know, many of those apps that I think there's just huge missed opportunity.
I think JPMC learned that from Simple. Shamir, I think, might be in the room. He's here, right? Shamir Karkal with Simple. Yeah, because I remember they actually apologized. They had an outage or something like that, and they wrote a great apology lesson. And I think, in my opinion, especially the big banks, learned quite a bit. The neobanks and the fintech companies definitely pushed them when it came to technology, and I think there's definitely a lot of parity now that we see. The one thing that still surprises me today, and I think Alex Jimenez, you're here, I think you actually wrote about this. We're this far in, and I still hear that fintechs don't know how to work with banks or partner with banks and how to do that. And then the flip side, that banks still struggle to work and partner with fintech. I'll ask you all, is that true? Do you feel that way? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of head nodding. You enjoy working with procurement at banks? Anybody in procurement here? We love you all. No. That's what you all need to fix. Okay, fix procurement, for God's sakes.
So, yeah, it's interesting from the other side.
Nobody Googled or nobody tweeted that.
Yeah, we tried.
You tried to fix procurement?
We did. We tried to change the process. You know, the argument was, in the time it takes you to traditionally onboard a new partner, we need to have worked with, run tests, gone to production, potentially shut them down and pick the next partner. So how do you think about changing that interaction model? And I think Luann said it really well. You know, that the average is about 18, 19 months. From when you get a yes, we want to work with you, the best case, the median of that is 8 months. So it continues to be, you know, a problem. You know, and now sitting on the other side of the table, where I'm the one, you know, trying to convince procurement and those organizations to move. I recognize the challenge. I empathize with it. But this goes back to disruption. I'm a big believer, and I talk to many C-suite individuals, and the first thing they tell me is they're on a transformation journey. And I'm like, oh no, here we go.
I hate that. Yeah.
Here we go.
It's like The Bachelor, our journey. I hate that.
And I said, well, okay, can we just align on transformation? To me, transformation, if you're not talking about cannibalizing your own business, if you're not talking about differentiated P&Ls, if you're not talking about a different talent strategy, all of these things, you're not transforming. Best case, and we'll be super polite, and we'll say you're optimizing. Generally, what you're doing is re-engineering. You're taking out a few steps, you're making it a little cleaner and easier. So that shift around disruption has to happen throughout the organizations. Yeah. And we actually got to a point where we were able to move it from average being a year to onboard down to a few months. But it's still not what it needs to be. So, but I have no magic wand there, sorry. If you figure it out, come back and let me know too.
Yeah, we got somebody from CapG here, so if you want to solve procurement, we'll introduce you. That would be wonderful. We are 4 months out from 2023, which sounds weird, right? But we are. It's almost 2023, folks. So this space is matured, right? If we go back to 2009. What do you think, I'll start with the banks. What do you think the banks are still missing? We'll start with the end customers when you look at this.
So from a true banking perspective, everybody talks about customer. But what I haven't seen is somebody actually deliver for the customers. And I'll make that statement end to end, to be honest. As I said, when I had this passion, I wanted to go. I fundamentally believe that the industry is ready for true disruption. Customers want education. They don't want legalese. They want communities. We ran a test and said, in 1 hour, go out there and find out how many community groups you can find. Pick your platform of choice. We came back, one team came back with 200 different communities of financial advice on Facebook. These were mums with kids. They were, single individuals. There were people going through divorce, trying to figure out the financial landscape. And I'm like, where's our obligation in this to help educate? Why aren't the banks building these communities? Why aren't we engaging in ecosystems? Why aren't we thinking about financial services? So go back to that stat. Less than 3%, average of 14 applications, less than 3% of the time is spent on financial services applications. Why hasn't financial services mastered gamification? Just things like personalization, data, people like me. Wouldn't it be great if we could sit there, every time I meet with my financial advisor, he tells me why I can never retire. I'm like, dude, at some point this conversation has to change. But if I was able to go out there and say, find people like me, people who want to retire in Florida, that have this demographic that looks similar like me and has this asset wealth that looks like this, if 60% of the people look something like me in that demographic, I'm not going to worry about whether I don't have a job tomorrow. So it's just the technology has advanced. Consumers demand more, but the models haven't advanced. They're still very much structured around traditional P&L and traditional banking versus how do I start thinking about ecosystems? How do I start thinking about the intersection between health and wealth? How do I start thinking about teaching responsible finance to my next generation, to my kids, in a world that will be all digital? How do I think about evaluating all of my assets and seeing that in one view, in one place, and pulling in my life insurance? We talked earlier about the rise of the super apps. I challenge there is no super app in the US.
In the US,
yes.
I agree.
In Asia, you've definitely seen the rise. Now, some of that's government-backed and regulated, but you have seen the rise of the super app and the impact they have for good and for bad. That there's risk that comes with it, but if you can pull together a one-stop shopping for consumers, you have started the change of disrupting this industry, and I think that's what's missing.
Yeah, I find it interesting that, I don't think we talked about this, Yo's responsibility is actually banking, payments, insurance, digital assets, and capital markets. So not much, right? Bless your heart. But again, you're talking that holistic picture, and now, I mean, we all know this, right? And with embedded finance and everything, everything's blurred. We can sit here and talk about healthcare and payments, we can talk about insurance, we can go all over the place for that. And I would agree with you in the US, this concept of a super app, you can forget it. How about, let's flip it on the fintech side, right? What do you think the fintechs are missing, or the advice you'd give back to them?
So, in my last role, I spent a ton of time with fintechs, and the passion, the energy, it's inspirational to be around it. So I commend all of you that are sitting in that space.
She used to work at LIC in New York, everybody. It's an incredibly exciting building. Citi was a great customer, but you spent every day in LIC.
I did.
Bless your heart. That's why she lives in Florida now.
Yeah.
So your penance, you deserve that.
But where I was going with it.
No, I still want to make fun of it.
Was,
that building, oh my God, it's the worst building in the world.
You know, it was about the team, Sam.
I know it was. You had a great team in an awful building.
We had ping pong, and we had
all
of the
God.
fintech-ish things. We had
the
pool
fintech
tables
floor did have a ping pong
bean
table that I made
bags.
fun of every time I went up there. Moving on.
And we had a bar, which actually was the biggest motivator. It took me 2 years to figure that out, but that was the biggest motivator for people. But what I found was I would sit at these events and watch these fintech pitches, and I would be sitting there thinking, if you, and you got together, you are going to change industry. And I found it interesting that criticism of the large banks is too inwardly focused, have to build everything myself. But when you play it back, the fintechs are very similar. You know, I have the best product, I have the best technology, you know, I'm gonna go change the world with this slice. And I think there's a mass opportunity for all of you in the room that put your hand up for fintech to look left and to look right and say, how much better would I be if I pulled in what they were doing? The same model applies to fintechs, is you don't have to build everything. But collectively, if you want to change industry and you want to differentiate, then there's an opportunity to do that at speed by thinking about the models differently.
And that's one of the things I love about Moov. So I'm on the Slack channel. Jared? No, Brian. Jared. But again, I think we talked about it this morning, right? If you're not on the Slack channel, you need to be. And the number of companies that are out there and just the freewheeling of questions, it's the Reddit of fintech. You're better than Reddit, I'll say that. But the opportunity to look adjacent, I agree with you. I think I had that experience in fintech, thought too narrow.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And that partnership model and how you'd approach that, which actually leads to one of my last questions for you. If you were to go out, if you had funding, what would you build? What would you do? And would you hire me again? No, is the answer.
I'm going to take the fifth on the last question.
Yeah, there we go.
So two things. One is I would start with who am I going to build it with?
That's good.
Because I think that makes a difference. But what I would build the ecosystem. My mind hasn't changed in the 2.5 years since I left City. I still haven't seen anyone do it. We can prove, you know, that when we did so much analysis around consumer, take a guess, what was the number one things that customer actually wanted to improve their financial health? Anyone have a guess?
What? Education?
So education was high up there. It was all my bills in one place. Something that simple that you've only just recently seen, you know, and there are entrants in there now that are focusing on that. But 3-4 years ago, there was no one that could show a customer their incoming and their outgoings consistently, allow them to go tag wants, needs, and goals to help them assess how much available cash did they have for those wants, you know, every single month, and how to be better prepared. A bank might do it, but very rarely these days does anyone have one singular banking relationships. So I would build the ecosystem. I wouldn't stop at traditional P&Ls. I would say that is a premise and a foundation. But I think someone said it really, really well earlier today in a session, that if you look at the rise of the neobanks, very quickly they become the same as all the other banks. Yeah. And there's reasons for that, right? Very genuine reasons, regulatory requirements. But what I haven't seen is people really stepping outside to challenge themselves, to engage with the consumer differently. The 5 verticals that Sam mentioned, I could sit here and cite a dozen use cases of connectivity and how that, you know, how we should be thinking about a consumer's interaction across all of those, and plenty more. So it would be build the ecosystem, it would be to drive a different experience, it would to center it through communities and education, I would include in there, the whole next generation that we have to be engaging differently. One of the brilliant ideas I had one night when I couldn't sleep was, why hasn't somebody built an app like this that we could take into schools to teach kids responsible, financial management?
Because our schools do such a good job of that. That's
They
why.
don't.
I live in Florida, everybody.
They've taken the fifth on it. And so that can then lead into that real life bank account and that, relationship. So I would go back to the reason I left. And we've had phenomenal conversations with many, many companies, both on the fintech side and on the large organizations, about how we can help them get there. But so far, there's no one there.
All right, so we've got 5 minutes left, so I think it's always good to end on some advice, right? Advice from the elder, speaking for myself, the elder side of fintech and banking, and you can join along with your 33 years of experience.
When I get my AARP
Yeah, when you
card,
get your AARP that I'm going to fill out for you and send to your house. Career advice, and I always think that's really good. So one piece of career advice, if you could give it to everybody in here. I'll share mine. I had a dream job. I worked with Simon Taylor at 11FS. I was having a blast in the fintech space. I swore I would never go work for a large enterprise company again, ever. And then Yo said, hey, come work for me. And initially, I can't say what I said. I can't use the words I said. I was like, no, hell no. But I definitely have something I believe in, and that's there's only certain people I'd work for. And you find those rock stars and you follow them. So if you're at Moov, obviously Wade, the first year we had this was like Wade's friends and family last year. And that's who showed up, right? I mean, that's reality. It's good to see all the developers in here this year. But you look for those people because there's not that many of them. At Jack Henry, Ben, wherever you are, Ben Metz, I would put in that category. I would go work for Ben. I would go work for Jane Barrett at MX. There's not too many. I left that job to go work for Yo. I haven't regretted it yet. But honestly, you look for those people and follow them, the ones that I know are actually going to get something done. Because I also want to actually accomplish something. So that's one of the things we love about Moov and what y'all are doing, right? You're actually getting stuff done and actually moving the industry and changing it. So I'll flip that for you, because you've been a CEO, you're basically a CEO right now. What's your one piece of advice for everybody in here?
I'm a huge believer, if anyone's heard me speak, they're probably sick of me saying this, that the difference between good and great is passion. Oh. So I'd actually ask all of you, how many of you are passionate about what you're doing and the company you're working with? That's phenomenal. Normally you don't see that many hands go up. I would challenge you, if you're not, go find something that you are. And I apologize if anyone's like, don't say that to my employees, because everyone's going to start switching seats. I have proven this time and time again. If you can get a team rallied around a common mission, you move mountains. My entire career, I've been the one when someone goes, we should do so-and-so, and everyone's going, can't be done, can't be done. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'll do it. I'll give it a shot. The success of all of those is because I've been passionate and the team around me have been passionate. And when you've got that level of passion, you don't quit when it gets hard. You find a way around the boulders. You stay vested. You want to spend, if you're in a job and you don't wake up on Sunday morning and want to know what's going on in your space, or are chatting with people on your team around, hey, have we thought about this? Have we thought about that? I challenge that you're going to be great. I challenge that you're going to leave the mark that you may have dreamt of, as you were entering the field. So that would be my advice. Be passionate, buy in. If it feels like a job, you're never going to get the results. I sit there and people like Sam's always bugging me about the hours I work, and which I tell him that so he doesn't show up on my doorstep because he lives way too close, by the way. No, I'm working, Sam, I can't. But I do it because I love it, because we're building a business. We're building something from scratch that didn't exist. And the ability to do that, and just to look back on the progress, I wish I could share the data with you, but I can't. But it's phenomenal, and that's because we've built a team that is passionate about changing this industry.
And that's what I love about this conference, by the way. I was here last year, and I would say it feels like that exists here. You can sense it. And so for all of you that are developers, I was a Lotus Notes developer in 1994.
Does everyone here know what Lotus Notes is?
Does anyone know what Lotus Notes is? Good on you, right? I'm with you.
I was COBOL.
You were COBOL?
I was COBOL.
You know how much money you can make doing that now?
Yeah, I keep thinking I should go back.
That'll actually be the next job we do. Everybody, thank you. I would encourage you, follow Yo, meet her, talk to her. It'll do you good. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Wade, for the opportunity.